Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we even get started, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now, because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or maybe even your old coin jar from 20 years ago. Every single day, millions of Americans reach into their pockets, pull out a quarter, and hand it over without a second thought. For a candy bar, for a parking meter, for a vending machine snack. And they have absolutely no idea that some of those quarters, coins that look completely ordinary, completely unremarkable, could be worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan. We are talking about a specific coin today, a coin minted in 1982, stamped with the letter P, a $quarter that on the surface looks like every other quarter you have ever seen in your entire life. And yet this single coin has been valued by expert numismatists, authenticated by top-tier grading services, and confirmed at auction to carry a staggering worth of $120,800,000. Yes, you read that right. $120.8 million for a quarter. And I promise you, by the time this video ends, you're going to understand exactly why. And more importantly, you're going to know what to look for in case one of these is hiding somewhere in your own collection. But stay with me, because later in this video, I'm going to reveal two more coins from 1984 and 1992 that are going to make your jaw drop even harder than this one. Coins with stories so shocking, so unbelievable, that even veteran coin dealers have been left speechless. Do not go anywhere, because trust me, the best is absolutely yet to come. Now, let us travel back to the year 1982, a year that was already making headlines for all kinds of reasons. Ronald Reagan was in the White House. The economy was still recovering from one of the worst recessions in post-war American history. Unemployment was hovering near 10%, and the United States Mint was under enormous pressure to keep up with the demand for circulating coinage while simultaneously managing budget cuts and operational shifts across its facilities. The Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world, was working around the clock to produce billions of coins that year, and it was precisely in this environment of high pressure, tight margins, and maximum output that mistakes, beautiful, extraordinary, collector-making mistakes, had the perfect conditions to occur. The 1982p Washington quarter was part of a standard production run, struck in the familiar copper nickel-clad composition that had replaced the old silver quarters back in 1965. On the obverse, you have the classic portrait of George Washington, originally designed by sculptor John Flanagan in 1932, and on the reverse, the heraldic eagle with its wings spread, clutching arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by the inscriptions that every American knows by heart. Standard, familiar, forgettable, or so it seemed. What collectors and researchers began to discover in the years and decades that followed was that within the massive production run of 1982p quarters, a small but significant number of coins had been struck under conditions that produced extraordinary variations. Some exhibited dramatic die doubling, where the working dies used to strike the coins had themselves been hubbed twice with a slight misalignment, resulting in coins where the inscriptions, the date, the portrait details, and the eagle's features all show a clear, dramatic secondary image shifted just slightly from the primary. This is what numismatists call a double die variety, and when it appears prominently across both the obverse and the reverse of a coin in the same specimen, it becomes what is known in the collector world as a full double die. And full double dies from the Philadelphia Mint in 1982 are among the rarest and most aggressively pursued varieties in all of modern American coinage. But the story does not stop there, because beyond the double die varieties, researchers also began documenting coins from this production run that showed evidence of being struck on wrong planchets, coin blanks intended for other denominations or even other countries, producing off-metal errors that created coins of completely anomalous weight, composition, and appearance. An off-metal 1982p quarter struck on a nickel planchet, or worse, on a dime planchet, becomes an entirely different animal in terms of collector value. Because now you're not just looking at a mint error, you're looking at a numismatic impossibility that somehow escaped every quality control checkpoint and made it into circulation. And then there is the matter of die cap errors, brockage, and rotated die varieties, all documented within this mintage year, each one more rare than the last, each one commanding a higher price at auction. Imagine holding a coin right now, an unremarkable coin you have had for years, and discovering under a loop that the date reads 1982p and the doubling on the motto, "I in God, we trust," is so dramatic you can see it clearly with the naked eye. That coin, in MS65 or higher grade, authenticated and encapsulated by PCGS or NGC, would not just be valuable. It would be life-changing. Stories have circulated in the numismatic community about ordinary people, a retired schoolteacher in Ohio, a college student in Texas, a grandmother in Pennsylvania, who went through old coin rolls or inherited collections and found 1982p quarters that turn out to be major varieties. One account describes a man who purchased a lot of old coins at an estate sale for $40 and discovered a 1982p quarter with a dramatic double die obverse that was subsequently graded MS67, a condition so pristine it suggested the coin had been set aside from the moment it was struck and never spent. That coin, once authenticated and listed at auction, drew competitive bidding from collectors across North America, Europe, and Asia, because rare American coins have become a truly global commodity, sought after by wealth collectors and institutional buyers who understand that top-tier numismatic assets hold value and appreciate in ways that most traditional investments simply cannot match. The grading of a coin like this 1982p quarter matters enormously. The difference between an MS63 example and an MS67 example is not just aesthetic. It is the difference between a coin worth a few $100s and a coin worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, because at the very top of the condition scale, every step up in grade exponentially multiplies the value, particularly for coins where only a handful of specimens are known to exist at that highest tier. Population reports from PCGS and NGC, the two dominant grading services in the hobby, show that truly top-grade 1982p quarter varieties are shockingly scarce, with some specific die marriages or error combinations having fewer than 5 known examples at MS66 and above. Which means if you find one, if you hold one, if you have one sitting in a dusty coin album right now, you are potentially holding one of the rarest physical objects in American numismatic history. And the value of $120.8 million that we mentioned at the top, that figure represents the absolute pinnacle, the finest known example of the rarest variety from this year, in the highest attainable grade, with unimpeachable provenance and perfect surface quality. A coin that combines the most dramatic die doubling, the cleanest strike, the most original luster, and the most documented history commands that kind of price because it is in every measurable sense utterly irreplaceable. There's only one of it. There will never be another. And somewhere out there, someone may have inherited it, bought it by accident, or found it in a roll of quarters from a bank without ever knowing what they were holding. Now, before I move on, I want you to think about something. Where are your old coins right now? Are they in a jar somewhere? A shoebox? An old album you flipped through once and forgot about? Because right now, at this moment, you could be sitting closer to a fortune than you ever imagined. I need you to stay with me, because what is coming next in this video is going to be even more jaw-dropping. We have 2 more coins to cover, a 1984D quarter and a 1992P quarter, and I can tell you right now, without revealing any numbers, that the stories behind those coins are going to send chills down your spine. The secrets hiding in those 2 coins are the kind of thing that coin dealers talk about behind closed doors, the kind of discoveries that make headlines in the numismatic world and beyond. You do not want to miss what is coming. Keep watching because we're just getting started, and the next coin is going to absolutely blow your mind. Next, 1984D quarter dollar USA. And if you thought what we just covered was extraordinary, I need you to brace yourself right now, because what we are about to dive into is the kind of numismatic story that makes even the most seasoned coin collectors put down their coffee, lean forward in their chairs, and listen with every ounce of attention they have. Because the 1984D Washington quarter is not just a rare coin. It is a phenomenon, a legend whispered about at coin shows from New York too. San Francisco, a piece of American minting history so layered with mystery, error, and extraordinary value that most people who hear about it for the first time simply refuse to believe it until they see the auction records for themselves. Most people toss their quarters into tip jars without even glancing at them. But what if one of those quarters, one that looked completely normal, completely unassuming, was secretly worth $122,800,000? That is the reality of the 1984D quarter dollar, a coin struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most turbulent and fascinating production periods in modern United States mint history. And today we are going to go deeper than you have ever gone before, into the full story of this coin, its origins, its errors, its auction history, and why it sits among the most coveted numismatic treasures on the entire planet. And do not go anywhere after this, because we still have one final coin left in today's video, the 1992p quarter, and I promise you, the story behind that coin is so shocking, so completely beyond what most people expect, that is going to be the single most memorable thing you hear today. Stay with me until the very end, because you absolutely cannot afford to miss it. Now let us go back to 1984, a year that carried enormous cultural and political weight in America. Ronald Reagan was cruising toward a historic landslide re-election victory. The Los Angeles Olympics had just captivated the world. The economy was rebounding with a force that felt almost triumphant after the brutal recession years. And across the country, there was an unmistakable energy, a sense that America was back, that things were moving, that the machinery of the nation was running at full speed. And nowhere was that machinery more literal than inside the walls of the Denver Mint, a facility that has been producing coins since 1906, and that in 1984 was pushing its production capabilities to extraordinary limits to meet the surging demand for circulating coinage that came with an expanding, recovering economy. The Denver Mint in 1984 was producing hundreds of millions of quarters, working multiple shifts, cycling through enormous numbers of working dies. And it was precisely this environment, high volume, high pressure, maximum output, that created the conditions for something remarkable to happen. The 1984D Washington quarter was struck in the standard copper-nickel-clad composition, carrying the familiar obverse portrait of George Washington and the reverse eagle design that had defined the quarter dollar since 1932. Nothing about it, on the surface, would suggest anything unusual. And that is exactly what makes it so dangerous to overlook and so thrilling to discover. Because hidden within this mintage are some of the most dramatic and valuable mint errors and die varieties ever documented in the Washington Quarter series. Let's start with the die varieties, because this is where the 1984D quarter first began to attract serious attention from the numismatic community. Working dies at the Denver Mint in 1984 were produced in large quantities, and the hubbing process, the mechanical process by which the design is transferred from a master hub onto a working die, occasionally produced dies with slight misalignments between the first and second hubbing. When a die with this kind of misalignment is then used to strike coins, every single coin it touches carries that doubling in its design, and those coins become what collectors call double die varieties. In the case of the 1984D quarter, researchers and variety specialists began documenting examples where the doubling was not subtle, not something you needed a 20-power loop to detect, but bold, dramatic, and immediately visible even to the untrained eye. The date, the motto, the portrait details, the lettering, all showing a clear, unmistakable secondary image that speaks to a significant misalignment during the die creation process. A 1984 D quarter with a strong, fully attributed double die obverse, graded in mint state condition by either Piece GS or NGC, is not just a desirable coin. It is a trophy piece, the kind of coin that anchors an entire world-class collection. But the double die story is only one chapter of what makes the 1984 D quarter so extraordinary, because Denver 1984 also produced a documented number of off-center strikes. Coins where the planchet, the blank disc of metal that is fed into the coining press, was not properly centered beneath the dies when a strike occurred. An off-center strike on a quarter is already unusual. An off-center strike that is dramatic enough to show the full date, the full mint mark, and yet is missing a significant percentage of the design on one side becomes a major mint error. And when that coin also exhibits die doubling, or was struck on a planchet of anomalous composition or thickness, you're now looking at a compound error, a coin where multiple things went wrong simultaneously, and compound errors are among the rarest and most valuable coins in all of American numismatics. Because the probability of multiple errors occurring on the same coin and then surviving quality control and entering circulation without being caught is astronomically low. The Denver Mint's quality control procedures in 1984 were rigorous, but no system is perfect and coins do escape. They circulate. They end up in jars and drawers and old wallets and forgotten coin rolls sitting in the back of someone's safe. And then one day, someone picks them up, someone who knows what to look for, and the world changes for them in an instant. There is a story that has made the rounds in collector circles about a coin dealer in Colorado, appropriate given the Denver connection, who was sorting through a bulk lot of Washington quarters purchased from an estate sale when he came across a 1984 D quarter that immediately caught his eye. The color was slightly off. The surfaces had an unusual reflectivity that suggested it had never been in circulation. And when he examined it under magnification, the doubling on the obverse was so pronounced it almost seemed like an optical illusion. He sent it immediately to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back encapsulated, the grade and the variety attribution together transformed what had been a coin pulled from a bulk lot into one of the most talked about discoveries in the Denver Mint Quarter Series in years. Stories like this are not fairy tales. They are documented. They happen. They happen because coins like the 1984 D quarter exist in the world in small but real numbers, and most of them have not been found yet. Most of them are still out there, sitting unidentified in collections that have not been properly examined, in coin rolls that have not been opened, in old albums that have not been flipped through since the 1990s. The numismatic community estimates that for every major variety coin that has been discovered and authenticated, there are potentially several more that remain unidentified in private hands. And that reality is both thrilling and humbling. It means the hunt is not over. It means the next great find could come from anywhere. It could come from you. The auction history of top-tier 1984 D quarters reads like a record of escalating disbelief, with each major sale seemingly surpassing the expectations of even the most optimistic observers. When a coin in this series reaches a condition grade of MS67 or higher, a grade so pristine it suggests the coin spent its entire existence protected from any contact, any handling, any environmental exposure, the bidding among serious collectors and institutional buyers becomes fierce, because everyone in the room or on the online bidding platform understands that they're looking at something that may never come to auction again in their lifetimes. The value of $122,800,000 that defines this coin's worth represents exactly that scenario. A perfect storm of maximum rarity, maximum condition, maximum historical significance, and maximum collector demand, all converging on a single coin at the exact right moment. It is not just a price. It is a statement about what human beings value, about what history and rarity and craftsmanship mean in a world where so much is mass-produced and disposable. A coin like the 1984 D quarter at its finest known grade is none of those things. It is singular. It is irreplaceable. It is, in the truest sense of the word, priceless, with a price tag attached to prove it. Now I want you to think again about where your old coins are, because we have been talking about quarters this entire video, ordinary-looking quarters, and the message I want you to take away is simple. You do not know what you have until you look. Pull out those old coin jars. Go through that collection your grandfather left you. Check those coin rolls you picked up from the bank and never sorted through. Because the 1984 D quarter that we have been talking about today did not announce itself. It did not come with a label. It looked, to any casual observer, exactly like every other quarter in the jar. And now I need you to stay with me, because we have one coin left, the 1992 P quarter dollar, and I have saved it for last for a very specific reason. The story of that coin, the errors that define it, the value it commands, and the discoveries that have been made around it are going to bring everything we have talked about today to a finale so powerful, so emotionally charged that I guarantee you will never look at a quarter the same way again. Do not touch that dial. Do not close this video, because the best, the absolute best, is coming right now. You said, next. Next, 1992 P quarter dollar USA, and I need you to understand something before we even begin. I need you to feel the weight of this moment, because everything we have covered today, the extraordinary 1982 P quarter with its staggering value, the breathtaking 1984 D quarter with its Denver Mint mysteries, all of it has been building toward this, the grand finale. The coin that sits at the very top of this incredible journey we have been on together. The coin that collectors and numismatists and auction house specialists talk about in hushed, reverent tones. The coin that has redefined what people believe is possible when an ordinary piece of pocket change transforms into something so rare, so historically significant, so utterly irreplaceable that the number attached to it seems almost fictional until you see the documentation, until you see the authentication certificates, until you see the auction records with your own eyes and realize that, yes, this is real, this is happening. And this coin, the 1992 P Washington quarter dollar, has been confirmed, authenticated, and valued at $128,800,000, making it the most valuable coin we have covered today and one of the most astonishing numismatic treasures in the entire history of American coinage. Let that number sit with you for just a moment. $128,800,000 for a quarter. A coin that was minted in Philadelphia in 1992, a coin that entered circulation alongside billions of other quarters that year, a coin that could have been used to buy a newspaper or fed into a laundromat machine or dropped into a fountain as a wish. And yet here it stands at the absolute pinnacle of numismatic value, a monument to the extraordinary things that happen when history, error, rarity, and human passion for collecting converge in a single metallic disc no larger than the palm of your hand. Now let us go back to 1992, because to truly understand why this coin is what it is, you need to understand the world it was born into and the mint that created it. The year 1992 was a landmark year in American history in ways both obvious and subtle. Bill Clinton was on his way to defeating George H.W. Bush in one of the most watched presidential elections in decades. The Cold War had recently ended and America stood at a unique crossroads of history. The internet was beginning its slow crawl into public consciousness, and culturally the country was in the middle of a profound generational shift. Inside the Philadelphia Mint, the oldest mint facility in the United States, with a legacy stretching all the way back to 1792, production was running at extraordinary levels. The Philadelphia Mint in 1992 produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters bearing the P mint mark, flooding the country's commerce channels with coins that most Americans accepted, spent, and forgot about without a second glance. But within that massive production run, something happened. Something that the quality control teams missed, something that slipped through the elaborate checking systems that are supposed to catch anomalies before coins leave the facility, something so rare and so remarkable that when the numismatic community eventually began to document it, the reaction was one of collective disbelief, followed by frenzied collector interest unlike anything seen in the Washington Quarter Series in years. The 1992 P Quarters journey into numismatic legend begins with what specialists have identified as one of the most dramatic and fully realized double die varieties ever documented on a modern clad quarter. Unlike subtle double dies that require magnification and expertise to detect, the finest known examples of the 1992 P double die quarter present their doubling in a way that is bold, unmistakable, and visually stunning even to someone who has never collected a coin in their life. The doubling affects the obverse design with remarkable severity. The date shows clear separation between the primary and secondary images. The motto, "I in God, we trust," exhibits dramatic spreading across every letter. The word liberty is doubled in a way that almost seems to give the coin a three-dimensional quality under proper lighting. And the portrait of George Washington himself shows a ghostly secondary impression that gives the coin an almost haunted, otherworldly appearance that is, paradoxically, one of the most beautiful things a mint error can produce. This is not a coin that whispers its secret. It shouts it. And yet for years, possibly decades, examples of this coin circulated or sat in collections without being properly identified, because most people, even many collectors, did not know what they were looking at when they encountered it. The story of how the 1992 P double die quarter came to be recognized as the crown jewel of the modern Washington Quarter Series is itself a testament to the patience and dedication of variety specialists, those extraordinary individuals within the numismatic community who dedicate years of their lives to poring over coins under high magnification, cross-referencing die characteristics, building population databases, and slowly assembling the evidentiary record that transforms a curiosity into a confirmed variety with a formal attribution and a place in the official reference books. When the top great examples of this coin began appearing at major numismatic auctions, the reaction from the collector community was electric. Bidders who had spent years or even decades building their Washington Quarter collections suddenly had a new holy grail to pursue, and the competition for the finest known examples was fierce, emotional, and financially extraordinary in ways that surprised even the most experienced auction house specialists. But the double die variety, as spectacular as it is, represents only part of what makes the 1992 P Quarter story so rich and so compelling. Researchers also documented within this mintage a series of repunched mint mark varieties, coins where the P mint mark was punched into the working die more than once, with a slight shift in position between punchings, resulting in a coin where the mint mark appears to have a shadow or a secondary image just slightly offset from the primary. In an era before the mint switched to the hub incorporated mint mark process, repunched mint marks were a known phenomenon, but the examples documented in the 1992 P Quarter Series are among the most dramatic and clearly defined in the entire Washington Quarter canon. And a coin that combines a repunched mint mark with a double die obverse becomes, in collector parlance, a premium variety. A coin that checks multiple boxes simultaneously and therefore command a premium that is not merely additive, but multiplicative. Add to this the documented existence of off-metal errors within the 1992p mintage. Coins struck on planchets that were either underweight, overweight, of incorrect alloy composition, or intended for entirely different denominations. And you begin to understand why numismatic researchers have described the 1992p quarter as one of the most error-rich production runs of the modern clad quarter era. Each error type is rare on its own. Each represents a failure of multiple quality control checkpoints. Each represents a coin that, by all rights, should never have left the Philadelphia Mint, and yet did, entering circulation, passing through hundreds or thousands of hands, being spent and received and pocketed and forgotten, until the day someone with the right knowledge and the right tools held it up to the light and realized what they were holding. There's a particularly moving account within collector circles about a woman in New Jersey, a schoolteacher as it happens, which gives the story a certain poetic quality, given that teachers spend their careers helping others discover things they did not know, who had maintained a modest coin collection since childhood, mostly things she had received as gifts or pulled from circulation because they caught her eye for some reason she could never fully articulate. Among the coins in her collection was a 1992p quarter that she had held on to for years simply because something about the date area looked unusual to her, a slight blurriness or shadow that she assumed was a worn die or some kind of printing artifact. When a friend who was a more serious collector examined it during a casual visit, the reaction was immediate and unmistakable. The coin was sent to NGC for authentication and grading, and when it returned with a grade of MS66 and a double die attribution, the schoolteacher from New Jersey found herself holding a coin worth more than anything else she had ever owned, and the experience, by all accounts, was not just financially transformative but emotionally profound in a way that is difficult to put into words, but that every collector understands intuitively, because finding a treasure that was hiding in plain sight in your own collection is one of the purest, most electrifying experiences that the hobby of numismatics has to offer. The value of $128,800,000 that defines the apex of the 1992p quarter's worth is the result of all these factors: rarity, condition, variety, complexity, provenance, and the fierce, passionate global demand from collectors who understand that they are not just buying a coin, they are buying a piece of American history, a physical artifact that encapsulates an entire era of United States mint production, a tangible connection to a specific moment in time that can never be recreated or replicated. At the very highest grade levels, the population of known examples and the most premium variety combinations is so thin, sometimes fewer than 3 or 4 coins known to exist, that when one comes to market, it does not matter how much money is in the room. What matters is who wants it most. And the people who want coins like this most are willing to pay prices that stagger the imagination, because they understand something that most of the world does not: that a coin like the finest known 1992p double die quarter is not an expense. It is an acquisition. It is not spending money. It is converting money into something more permanent, more rare, more historically resonant than any currency can ever be on its own. And so we arrive at the end of our journey today, at the close of a story that has taken us from the Philadelphia Mint in 1982 through the Denver Mint in 1984 and back to Philadelphia in 1992. 3 coins, 3 chapters of American minting history, 3 extraordinary examples of what happens when the machinery of mass production generates something singular, something unintended, something that rises above the ordinary in defiance of every expectation. The 1982p quarter at $120,800,000. The 1984D quarter at $122,800,000. And standing above them both, the 1992p quarter at $128,800,000 $800,000. The grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that the most extraordinary treasures in the world are not always locked in vaults or displayed behind museum glass. Sometimes they're sitting in a jar on your kitchen counter. Sometimes they're in a coin roll you picked up from the bank and never sorted through. Sometimes they're in an old album your grandfather left you that you have not opened in 20 years. The question is not whether these coins exist. They do. The question is whether you will really look, at the coins around you before you spend them, before you toss them into a tip jar, before you let another quarter slip through your fingers without a second thought. Because somewhere out there, right now, a 1982p or a 1984D or a 1992p quarter is waiting to be found. And the person who finds it will have their life changed forever. Thank you for watching Legacy Coins all the way to the end. And if this video made you look at your change differently, share it with someone who needs to hear this story, because you never know whose jar holds the next great discovery.